Hey friend, welcome back to Daily English Podcast. If you're just starting to learn English and feel unsure where to begin, this episode is for you. Today, we're diving into something simple and life-changing. We'll explore the best books for beginners to grow your English, build confidence, and fall in love with reading one page at a time. So get comfortable, and let's begin. When someone tells you to start reading books to improve your English, it might sound simple, right? Just open a book and start reading. But for many beginners, it doesn't feel that easy. You open the first page, and suddenly you feel lost. Too many unknown words, too many long sentences. You feel slow, stuck, maybe even embarrassed. And inside, something whispers. Maybe English just isn't for you, but let me tell you something powerful. That whisper is wrong. Learning English isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up page after page and building confidence one word at a time. You don't need to read the hardest books. You don't need to understand every word. You just need to start with the right book, the right story, something that makes you feel, not just think. Something that speaks to your level, to your heart, and to your dream of speaking English clearly. Because every fluent speaker you've ever admired, every teacher, every confident person you've heard speaking smoothly, they all started where you are, and many of them started with a book. Books are quiet teachers. They don't judge your accent. They don't laugh when you pause. They wait patiently. They repeat as many times as you need. They whisper new words to you. And if you stay close enough, they will teach you how to think in English without even realizing it. And the best part is, you don't need to start with Shakespeare or complicated grammar textbooks. You can start small. You can start simple. You can start with a story that feels like it's written just for you. So in this episode, we're gonna walk together through a list of books. Not just random titles. These are books that feel good to read, books that are written in simple English, books that tell real stories, stories that can help you speak better, think clearer, and grow more confident every time you turn the page. But before we get to the list, let's talk about why the right book matters and how it can change your English journey forever. I remember a girl who was just starting to learn English. She was shy, always quiet in class. When the teacher asked her to read out loud, she looked down at the table, hoping someone else would speak first. She didn't believe in her voice yet, but one day, something changed. Her teacher gave her a book. Not a textbook, not a grammar guide, but a simple story, The Little Prince. Just a thin book with short chapters and soft words. At first, she didn't understand everything, but she understood enough to feel something. She read a line that said, "What is essential is invisible to the eye." She didn't know what essential meant, but she felt the emotion. She asked her teacher, and slowly, the meaning became clear. That one sentence stayed with her, and so she kept reading. Page by page, she found new words. She circled them. She read them out loud at home. Her voice got stronger. Her confidence started to grow. She didn't become fluent overnight, but something beautiful began. A quiet, personal relationship with English. It didn't start with a lesson. It started with a feeling, a connection, a sentence that touched her. That's the power of the right book. When you're a beginner, you don't need speed. You don't need perfection. You need a story that gives you something to hold on to, a sentence that makes you think, a paragraph that makes you smile, a character that feels like a friend. And The Little Prince is that kind of book. Simple words, deep meaning, and pages that welcome you in, even if your English is still growing. Books like that don't just teach vocabulary, they build trust between you and the language. There was another story I'll never forget. A young boy living in a quiet town where English books were hard to find. He didn't have a computer, didn't have YouTube, but one day he found something strange in a secondhand bookshop. A copy of Charlotte's Web. The cover was old. The pages were yellow, but something about the title made him curious. He bought it for the price of a soda. That night, he sat alone with a candle and opened the book. The first sentence was simple. "Where's Papa going with that axe?" 7 words, all short, all clear. And just like that, he was pulled into a world of barns and talking animals and friendship. A world where the sentences were soft, the story was kind, and the words felt like they were written for him. He didn't understand every single line, but that didn't stop him. He read slowly, sometimes repeating the same paragraph 5 times. He underlined what he didn't know. He looked things up in a little pocket dictionary, but most importantly, he kept reading because the story kept him company. Charlotte, the spider, became his teacher. Wilbur, the pig, became his study partner. And the book became something more than a story. It became his first safe space in English. That's what the right book does. It becomes more than a lesson. It becomes a quiet friend. It listens when you're tired. It speaks when you're ready. And the beauty of Charlotte's Web is that it's written in clean, short sentences, with vocabulary perfect for a beginner who just wants to feel the joy of finishing a real book. When the boy closed that book weeks later, he didn't just finish a story. He finished something inside himself. He felt proud. He had made it from the first page to the last. And that confidence, it changed everything. He started reading more. He started speaking more. He started believing. There was a boy who hated reading, not because he was lazy, not because he didn't care, but because every book he picked up made him feel stupid. Too many hard words, too many long explanations. Every time he tried, he gave up until one day someone gave him a book without pressure. No test, no grammar, just a funny little story with cartoons inside. The title was Diary of a Wimpy Kid. At first he thought it was a children's book. Too silly for someone his age. But the first page made him laugh. Not because the joke was perfect, but because he understood it. For the first time in a long time, the English didn't confuse him. It invited him in. The sentences were short. The grammar was simple. And there were pictures, not just for decoration, but for understanding. Every image helped him guess the meaning. Every drawing gave him a break from overthinking. And slowly, page by page, the book gave him something no other English book had ever given before. Momentum. He started reading 1 chapter a day, then 2, then 5, and by the end of the week, he had finished the whole book for the first time. In his life, he finished an English book from cover to cover, and not because he forced himself, but because he actually wanted to. He laughed at Greg's silly mistakes. He learned words like locker, principal, and pop quiz. He started to think in English, not in complex ways, but in real everyday moments. And that's exactly what beginner learners need. Books that match real life. Stories that feel modern, relatable, and lighthearted. Diary of a Wimpy Kid is not just a fun book. It's a confidence builder. It teaches English through humor, emotion, and connection. And for beginners, that's gold. Because when you enjoy what you're reading, you remember more. You try more. You believe more. Sometimes the best book for learning isn't the most serious. Sometimes it's the one that makes you smile and say, hey, I can actually read this. There was a father who wanted to help his daughter learn English. She was 9 years old, curious, but easily distracted. Every time he gave her a new book, she'd read the first page and then run off to play. Nothing held her attention until he brought home a small book with penguins on the cover. Mr. Popper's Penguins. It wasn't a workbook. It wasn't filled with exercises. It was just a story, but a strange one. It talked about a man who painted houses, who loved reading about explorers, and who somehow ended up raising a group of penguins in his own home. The girl didn't understand every word at first, but something about the story pulled her in. It was funny. It was a little crazy. It was full of movement, and most importantly, it felt like play, not study. Her father read the first few pages with her each night. He helped her with the harder words. He explained one sentence, then let her try the next. And little by little, she began reading alone. Not because he told her to, but because she wanted to know what happened next. She wanted to follow the penguins. She wanted to laugh at the silly names, at the mess in the house, at Mr. Popper's wild ideas. And without even realizing it, her English was improving. That's what a good beginner book does. It gives you more than vocabulary. It gives you curiosity. It makes you want to keep turning pages, even when the words are new. And Mr. Popper's Penguins is perfect for that. The sentences are clear, the grammar is simple, and the story is filled with fun and rhythm, perfect for young readers or adults who still feel like beginners inside. It doesn't matter how old you are. What matters is that you feel safe while learning. You feel seen. You feel like the book isn't above you. It's beside you, guiding you gently forward. Some of the best books for learning English don't teach rules. They teach joy. They remind you why language matters in the first place. Not to pass a test, not to impress anyone, but to feel connected, to laugh, to wonder, to read one more chapter just because it feels good. He was a man who had given up on English. He had tried before, many times, online classes, grammar books, even YouTube videos. But every time he started, he quit. Not because he didn't want to learn, but because nothing stayed. Words slipped through his memory like water through his fingers. It made him feel slow. It made him feel small. Then one day, someone handed him a book. Not a beginner book, not a children's book, just a thin, quiet novel with golden letters on the front. The Alchemist. He almost gave it back. "This is too hard for me," he said. But the woman smiled and told him, "Just try the first 5 pages." So he did. At first he struggled. Some of the words were unfamiliar, but something was different this time. The sentences were soft. The story was slow. It didn't rush. It whispered. And the first line stopped him. When you want something, all the universe conspires in helping you to achieve it. He read it again, slowly, then again. He didn't understand the whole sentence at first, but he understood the feeling. That one line made him pause. It made him breathe. It made him think about the life he wanted. And something inside him said, keep going. So he read 1 page a day, then 2. He kept a small notebook beside him where he wrote down words he didn't. No, he didn't rush. He didn't try to finish it quickly. He just let the story carry him, like a slow river pulling him forward. And as the shepherd boy in the book chased his dream across the desert, this man was chasing his own. Not gold, not treasure, but the belief that he could still grow, that he could still learn, that he wasn't too late. The Alchemist isn't written in easy English, but it's written with easy emotion. And that's why it works, because the sentences are poetic, the chapters are short. And the story is bigger than the grammar. It's about listening to your heart, about not giving up, about trusting the journey. And when you're a beginner, sometimes you don't need grammar. You don't need 100 vocabulary words. You just need a story that helps you fall in love with the sound of English again. That's what this book did for him. And that's what it can do for anyone who still believes they have something inside worth discovering. She worked long hours cleaning offices. Every day she carried a small English notebook in her bag. She had written down the same 10 words over and over again. The words like because, before, and always. She wanted to speak better. She wanted to understand people. But most of all, she wanted to stop feeling left behind. One afternoon, while waiting for the bus, she saw a used bookstore. Just a small place tucked between a coffee shop and a laundry. She walked in, not expecting anything, but there on a dusty shelf, she found a book with big letters on the cover. Oxford Bookworm's Library, Stage 1, The Elephant Man. She opened it, short paragraphs, simple grammar, a few illustrations, and best of all, a little vocabulary box at the back of each chapter to help her understand what she had just read. She sat on the bus and read the first 2 pages, and for the first time in years, she didn't feel tired. She felt alive. These books weren't written to impress. They were written to help, designed for learners like her. Books with different levels, from stage 1 to stage 6. Some stories were classics, some were modern, all were simplified, all were gentle, all were made with care. She bought 2 more. Stage 1, The Monkey's Paw. Stage 2, The Piano. And every week she read a little more. Not because someone told her to, not because she had a deadline, but because the books made her feel like she was was growing, slowly, quietly, but for real. This is the beauty of graded readers. They're not childish, they're not boring, they're just the right size for your level. You can find romance, mystery, science fiction, or adventure. You can read Sherlock Holmes and understand him. You can read Jane Eyre and feel her loneliness. You can step into the world of famous literature even as a beginner. That's the gift of these books. They don't lower your dreams. They raise your chances. They let you taste great stories in a way that fits your pace, one page at a time, one level at a time, until slowly your English grows strong enough to read anything. And you realize you're not just reading anymore. You're understanding, feeling, thinking, dreaming in English. He used to hide the fact that he was learning English. Every time someone asked him a question in English, his mind froze. His heart raced. His throat tightened. He was afraid to speak, not because he didn't know the words, but because he didn't believe in his ability to put them together. But he kept reading. At first, only graded readers, level 1, then level 2. Then he found a copy of The Secret Garden, level 3. The chapters were short. The vocabulary list helped. But more than that, the story touched something inside him. A sad girl, a locked garden, a quiet boy in bed who thought he couldn't walk. The book wasn't just teaching him English. It was teaching him hope, so he kept going. After 6 months, he was reading Oxford Bookworms level 4. The Picture of Dorian Gray. It was a little harder, but he didn't stop. He read it slowly, sometimes twice. He used a notebook, underlined new phrases, listened to the audio version, and one day something unexpected happened. He walked into a cafe where 2 tourists were struggling to order food. The staff didn't understand them. Everyone stood awkwardly, and without thinking, he stood up and helped translate. It was the first time he had spoken English in public, the first time his voice didn't shake. The first time he felt useful, not because he had memorized grammar, but because his reading had built quiet confidence inside him. That's what reading does. It builds you from the inside out, not overnight, not loudly, but layer by layer. Sentence by sentence, it rewires your brain, changes your thoughts, and gently opens your voice. He later told his friends, "Books taught me to speak." Not a teacher, not a course, books. And he was right, because when you read every day, even just 10 minutes, you start to feel different. You begin to notice patterns. You start thinking in English, not just translating. You hear how questions are formed. You understand how emotions are described. You begin to feel the language, not just study it, and slowly, without realizing it, you change. You become someone who doesn't run from English. You become someone who holds a book and says, "I can read this. I can finish this. I can speak." This. She sat on her bed surrounded by books. Some were too hard, some were too boring, some she had never even opened. She wanted to start, but didn't know where. And in that moment of silence, she whispered a question to herself. Which book is for me? The truth is, choosing your first real English book isn't just about level or vocabulary, and it's about connection. It's about what you feel ready for, what you're curious about, and what you need most in your heart right now. If you feel slow, tired, and unsure of yourself, maybe you need a soft story like The Little Prince to remind you that your thoughts have value. If you feel bored with grammar rules and want to smile, maybe you need something funny like Diary of a Wimpy Kid to remind you that English can be fun. If you feel stuck in life, maybe The Alchemist is waiting. Not to teach you English, but to teach you that your dream is still possible. That's how books speak to us. They don't all speak loudly. Some whisper, some nudge, some gently take your hand and say, "Let's walk together for a while." And that's all you need to begin. So if you're listening right now and still unsure, let me help you choose. Not from a list, but from feeling. Do you want a book that makes you smile, laugh, and feel like a kid again? Start with Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Do you want a book that makes you feel deep emotion in simple words? Try Charlotte's Web. Do you want to feel hope? to believe in magic, dreams, and the purpose of your journey. Read The Alchemist, even the simplified version. Do you want to feel smart, organized, and clear, and track your growth step by step? Pick up a graded reader. Or Oxford Bookworms Level 1, and go page by page with confidence. There's no right or wrong. Your level doesn't define your worth. Your speed doesn't define your intelligence. What matters is that you pick one and begin. Even one sentence a day is progress. One page a week is still movement. The biggest mistake is not choosing the wrong book. It's not choosing at all. Because the moment you pick your book, not someone else's, and open it with your own hands, something changes. You're no longer waiting for permission. You're no longer just learning. You're leading yourself, and that is when real growth begins. He finished his first book in English and felt something strange. Pride, yes. Relief, maybe. But also fear, because after the last page, there was a question sitting inside him. Now what? He didn't feel fluent. He didn't remember every word. He couldn't explain the story perfectly to someone else. A part of him felt like maybe he didn't learn enough. Maybe he should read something harder next. But then a quiet voice inside whispered, "No. Read it again." So he did. He went back to page 1, but this time, something was different. The words didn't feel so heavy. The sentences didn't confuse him. He noticed things he missed the first time. He saw how the author used simple words to express big emotions. He understood more without trying, and that's the power of rereading. We don't always need a new book. Sometimes we need to go deeper into the same one. The first time you read, you're just surviving. The second time, you're absorbing. The third time, you're owning it. He read the book again, and each time he understood more. Not just the words, but the rhythm, the grammar, the tone. He started to feel the pauses. He started to hear the natural voice of English in his mind, and little by little, he began to think in English, not full thoughts at first. Just fragments, just feelings, but they came, and they came from a book he once thought was too simple, too easy, not serious enough. But simple doesn't mean small, and easy doesn't mean weak. The truth is, the books that stay with us are often the ones we read again and again. So if you've already finished a beginner book, don't rush to the next. Go back, reread it slowly, out loud, with emotion. Listen to the audiobook if you can. Follow the text with your finger. Let the words become part of you, because repetition isn't failure. Repetition is mastery. You don't become fluent by reading 100 books. You become fluent by truly living with a few that touch you deeply. She was afraid to speak. Not because she didn't have anything to say, but because she didn't know how to say it in English. Every time she tried, she froze. She thought too much. She translated every word from her native language in her mind, and by the time she was ready to speak, the moment was gone, but she kept reading. She didn't read to speak. At least not at first. She read because it made her feel safe. She read because it was quiet. Because books didn't interrupt her. Because stories gave her space. And one day, while reading a simple sentence from Charlotte's Web, "You have been my friend," that in itself is a tremendous thing. She whispered it softly to herself, then again, louder, then again, with feeling. She didn't just read the sentence, she spoke it, and it didn't feel like study, it felt like truth. That's how reading helps you speak, not by giving you grammar charts, but by feeding your brain with full living English, the kind of English that flows, that has rhythm, that has breath and life and emotion inside the words. When you read, you see full sentences again and again. You start to recognize patterns, not because someone explained them, but because your mind remembers what it sees. When you read out loud, you teach your mouth how English feels. When you listen to the audiobook while reading, you teach your ears how real English sounds. And over time, something powerful happens. You stop translating. You stop freezing. You start speaking in patterns you've read 100 times before. You say, "I'm not sure," because the character said it. You say, "That sounds great," because it was in chapter 2. You say, "Can I ask you something?" Because you've read it 10 times and your brain remembers it as one natural piece, not as grammar, but as life. Reading builds your English from the inside, and even if you feel like you're not speaking much yet, don't worry. If you're reading, you're preparing. If you're listening to stories, you're training. Your brain is collecting pieces, and one day, when it's ready, the sentences will come. They won't be perfect, but they will be real, and they will be yours. So don't rush your voice. Feed it through pages, through soft-spoken lines, through simple books that feel like friends. Your words are growing, even if they're quiet. Now, they're getting ready to speak. He didn't have a teacher, he didn't go to class, but every morning he opened the same book and read the same 2 pages out loud. His English wasn't perfect, his pronunciation wasn't smooth, but he kept going. Why? Because he had discovered something that changed everything. He wasn't just reading anymore. He was speaking, slowly, softly, but out loud. The first time he read a sentence, it sounded broken, but the second time, it was better. The third time, even smoother. And the fourth time, it felt natural. That's what shadowing is. That's what repetition does. He started by listening to the audiobook version of his favorite beginner book, The Elephant Man. He'd play one sentence, pause, then repeat it exactly. The voice said, his name was Joseph Merrick. He paused. He copied. His name was Joseph Merrick. He matched the speed, the tone, the rhythm. Not perfectly, but closely. And something inside him started to shift. His tongue felt looser. His breath more natural. His confidence more alive. That's what happens when you stop just reading in your head and start reading out loud, again and again, with love and attention. You turn words into music. You turn stories into speech. Some people don't believe this at first. They think you need grammar lessons or conversation classes to improve speaking. And yes, those help. But if you don't feel ready to speak with people yet, books can be your first speaking partner. Let your favorite book become your coach. Open to a chapter you love. Read it aloud every morning. Listen to the audiobook. Repeat the lines with feeling. Copy the pronunciation. Imitate the emotion. And here's a little secret. If you write it down in your journal, you remember it even more. That's how real learners grow. They read a sentence, they speak it, they write it, they repeat it, not once, but daily. And in time, that sentence becomes a tool, a reflex, a part of them. So if you're holding a book right now, any book, don't just read it silently. Try whispering. Try reading it like a voice actor. Try recording yourself and playing it back. Not to judge, not to be perfect, just to feel it. Your voice doesn't grow by hiding. It grows by trying. One line, one page, one feeling at a time. She failed her English test 3 times in a row. The paper felt cold in her hand. The red marks made her feel smaller than her shadow. People told her to study harder, to try again, to not give up. But what no one told her was this: it's okay to feel tired. It's okay to feel like quitting. It's okay to cry, but don't stay there. Because your value is not measured by your test score. Your growth is not defined by one bad day. And your English journey is not over unless you decide it is. She stopped going to class for a while, but one day, while cleaning her drawer, she found a copy of The Little Prince. She had forgotten it was there. She opened it not to study, but to feel better, to distract her mind from the pressure. And when she read the words, "You become responsible forever for what you have tamed," she didn't know what tamed meant. But she cried because she knew what it felt like to care, to try, to give everything and still feel behind. But that day she kept reading. No dictionary, no rules, just feelings. And the strange thing was, she understood more than before. Because she was smarter now, but because she was softer. She wasn't reading to impress anyone. She was reading to remember that her journey still mattered. That's when her English started growing again. Slow readers are not slow thinkers. People who fail tests are not failures, and anyone who has ever felt behind still has time to catch up. Because reading is a different kind of teacher. It doesn't rush you. It doesn't compare you. It just says, come as you are. And when you show up, honestly, gently, consistently, something begins to bloom. You begin to forgive yourself. You begin to try again, not from pressure, but from peace. So if you failed English before, welcome. If you've been laughed at, welcome. If your reading is slow and your confidence is small, welcome. Books don't care about your past. They only care about your presence. They only ask, are you ready to turn the next page? And if you are even a little, then you are growing, you are healing, you are learning, and your comeback has already begun. He used to think he didn't have time. Too many things to do. Too much stress. Too many reasons not to read. But deep down, he knew the truth. It wasn't time that he lacked. It was peace. It was space. It was belief. So he made a new promise to himself. Not big, not loud. Just one small thing, 10 minutes a day. That's all. Every morning, before checking his phone, before stepping into the noise of life, he would sit by the window with his coffee and read one page. Just one. Sometimes he didn't understand everything. Sometimes he reread the same line again and again, but he didn't stop because he wasn't chasing speed. He was building a ritual, and over time, that ritual became a habit. That habit became a mindset. And that mindset became the reason his English finally started to grow. He didn't finish a book in 1 week. He didn't memorize 100 new words. But after 1 month, he had finished 3 chapters. After 2 months, the words began to feel familiar. After 3, he found himself thinking in English. Not perfectly, but naturally. That's the magic of small daily reading. It doesn't overwhelm you. It doesn't demand you to be brilliant. It just invites you to show up with your heart open and your book in hand. So if you're listening to this right now and wondering how to start, try this. Pick a book that feels soft, not scary. Put it beside your bed or your coffee mug or your toothbrush, somewhere you'll see it every morning. Set a timer for 10 minutes. That's it. Open to the next page. Read slowly, out loud. You can. Whisper if you must. Smile at what you understand. Pause when you don't, and don't stop after 1 day. Keep going. Even if it feels small, even if your mind says it's not enough. Because reading is not about one big effort. It's about tiny promises you keep with yourself. When you read every day, even one paragraph, you're telling your brain, this matters to me. This is who I want to become. And with each page, that message gets louder, clearer, stronger, until one day you don't just read in English, you live in it. She held the book in her hands for a long time after she finished the last page. No music, no applause. No one even knew, but something inside her was standing tall, quietly, proudly, because she had done something she never thought she could do. She had finished her first book in English. It wasn't a big book. It didn't have complicated words. It didn't win awards. But it meant something, because it was hers. Every sentence, every pause, every unknown word she had pushed through, they were all part of the story now. Not just the story in the book, but her story. She remembered how she used to say, I can't read English. She remembered skipping lines, skipping pages, skipping the idea of trying. And now, here she was. Book closed, heart open, mind changed. That moment doesn't look big from the outside, but inside it feels like freedom, because finishing your first English book isn't just about reading. It's about proving something to yourself. It's about showing yourself that you can follow through, that you're not a quitter, that your brain is capable, that your dream of speaking, understanding, and living in English is not impossible. Most people won't understand that feeling. They'll see a thin book and think it's easy. But you'll know what it really cost. You'll remember the hours you gave it, the lines you repeated, the words you looked up, the days you almost gave up, and you'll also remember the voice inside that kept whispering, keep going. And now you've made it. You finished your first English book. That moment will never leave you. It will live inside your memory forever, like a doorway that opened. And from now on, every time you feel small or stuck, you can remember this. Did it once, you can do it again. You're a reader now, and readers grow. Readers rise, so hold that moment. Let it settle in your bones. Let it become your new belief. And when you're ready, pick up the next book. Not because you have to, but because now you believe you can. He used to say it without thinking. I'm bad at English. Every time someone asked him to speak, he'd smile politely, shake his head, and say it again. I'm not good at English. He believed it like it was a fact, like it was his name. But something changed when he started reading. At first he still said it, even as he turned pages, even as he finished chapters. But the more he read, the more that old belief began to feel untrue. He wasn't fluent yet. He wasn't fast, but he wasn't bad. He was learning. He was improving. He was trying. And trying is not the same as failing. Trying is a beginning. Trying is belief in motion. One day someone asked him again, "Do you speak English?" And without thinking, he said something new. Not perfect, but I'm learning. That sentence changed his whole life, because now he wasn't the person who apologized for his English. He was the person who was growing it, one book at a time, one line at a time, one honest effort at a time. Reading does that to you. It rewrites your identity. It gives you new words to describe yourself. You stop calling yourself weak. You stop calling yourself late. You stop calling yourself slow, and you start saying things that are true. I'm a learner. I'm growing. I didn't understand this before, but now I do. I'm not afraid to try again. That's not just vocabulary, that's transformation. Books help you see yourself differently. Because when you read the words of someone else, you realize you're not alone. Your fears are not just yours. Your doubts have been felt before. And your hopes, even the quiet ones, are shared by people all around the world. And when you finish a book, something else happens. You start to speak to yourself with more kindness, more hope, more strength. You look in the mirror and see not a weak student, but a brave one. That's who you really are. Not the one who's behind, not the one who failed, but the one who kept reading and changed their story, one page at a time. So here we are. You've walked with me through stories of doubt, stories of courage, stories of quiet growth. You've seen how a single book, even a simple one, can change a person's life. You've seen how slow reading isn't a weakness, it's a form of care. You've seen that learning English isn't about being fast, it's about being real. Now I want to ask you something. Not as a teacher, not as a coach, but as someone who understands. What if today was the day you stopped saying, "I'm bad at English," and started saying, "I'm becoming better"? Every time I turn a page, what if today you chose one book? Not a perfect book, not a difficult book, just a book that feels right, and you said, "This is where I begin." What if today you stopped waiting to be ready and simply picked up the first sentence and let it lead you forward? 'Cause the truth is, it's not about the book. It's about what the book unlocks in you, your hope, your rhythm, your voice, your courage. That's what you've been building all along. And if no one has told you this lately, let me say it to you now. I'm proud of you, not for finishing this episode, not even for reading every day. I'm proud of you for not giving up, for still believing, for still trying. You are not behind, you are not broken, you are not too late. You're learning, you're growing. And every page you read is proof. So take that book, the one you've been thinking about while listening, and make a promise not to finish it fast, not to understand every word, just to begin, just to stay with it, just to keep going. Because one day you'll look back at the book you're about to read and you'll smile, not just because you finished it, but because it helped you become someone who believes in themselves again. That's what English is really about. Not the grammar, not the accent, but the confidence to say, "This is my voice, this is my journey, and I'm not done yet." So, wherever you are right now, sitting at your desk, walking outside, lying in bed with your eyes closed, I want you to take a deep breath. You've just taken a powerful step. Not because you learned a list of books, but because you stayed with this story, because you opened your heart to something that could grow your confidence. You don't need to rush. You don't need to compare yourself to anyone. You only need to return to the page again and again with love and intention. Your English will grow, your voice will rise, your belief will return. And one day soon, you'll speak. Not with fear, but with calm. Not with doubt, but with quiet pride. Because every time you read, you're building the future you dream about. So here's your next move. Find one book, read one page. Speak. one sentence out loud, and do it again tomorrow. That's how it begins. That's how it continues. That's how it becomes real. You're not just learning English. You're becoming the person who never gave up. And that is the most powerful thing you'll ever do. Thank you for spending this time with me today. If this episode gave you hope, guidance, or even just a moment of peace, I'm so glad. Remember, it's not about reading fast. It's about staying close to the words that help you grow. If you're ready to take the next step, subscribe to Daily English Podcast so you don't miss what's coming next. And most of all, keep reading. Your story matters, and you're just getting started.